Hello, my amazing students. This is Mrs. A, and I love math. Today, we're talking about Lesson 78 in your Saxon Orange Book. And the topic is rational equations. And these are a lot of fun and fairly simple to do if you know the right plan of attack. What we're going to do to attack these problems, to solve them, is simply to multiply by a least common denominator that will get rid of all of the fractions. Well, 2 and 4 and 6 all have a least common multiple, which is 12. So if we multiply the whole equation by 12 on the left and 12 on the right, we did nothing to the equation. Okay, so that's our multiplication property of equality, which says that if I multiply the left-hand side and the right-hand side by the same non-zero quantity, I don't change a thing. But the form of the equation becomes much handier. 12 times y over 2 is just 6y, plus 12 times 1/4 is 3, equals y over 6 times 12, which is 2y. Much easier to look at, isn't it? So now, since I'm solving for y, I have y here and y here. I'm going to go ahead and get all of my y's over here. So I'm going to minus 6y, which is going to give me 3 equals negative 4y. To get y by itself, I will divide by a negative 4 and divide by a negative 4. And y is negative 3/4. So y equals negative 3/4. And that was pretty simple. Not much to it. Multiplying by an LCD, or least common multiple, which is the same thing. So here we have the second example. And 7 and 2 and 3 have no factors in common. So we're just going to have to multiply 7 times 6, which is 42. But when we multiply 42 on this side and 42 on this side, then the 42 and the 7 will cancel with a 6 times 2, or 12x minus 42 divided by 2 is 21, times 3 is 63x, equals 42 divided by 3 is 14, I think. And it is. Okay, so 14. And we have multiplied all the way across by a non-zero number of 42. So now these two are like terms. 12 take away 63. So the difference between 12 and 63, that's going to be a negative 51. Yes. And x equals, and then 14. Okay. And 14, we're trying to get the x by itself, so negative 51 and negative 51. And x is equal to negative 14 over 51. I know that 14 is divisible by 2 and 7, but neither 2 or 7 go into 51. So I know that one cannot be simplified any further. So there is the second example, and that is correct. See how easy these are? Okay, the third example, we have a 2 and a 7 and nothing on the end, but even though we don't have anything over there, we still have to figure out what is the least common denominator and multiply every single part. So that's going to be 14. We're going to multiply the left-hand side by 14. We're also going to multiply the right-hand side by 14. 14 over 2 is 7. 7 times 3 is 21. Y. 14 over 7 is 2. So we're going to multiply a 2 across there. So we have a sum or a difference up there. So 2 times this is going to be 16 minus 8y. And then 14 times 3 is 42. 14 times 3 is 42. So now we have a 21y and a negative 8y, which is going to give me a 13y plus 16 is, so this is gone, and 42. So now we want to get rid of that 16. So minus 16 minus 16, 13y equals, and I subtract and get a 6. 3 minus 1 is 2. Ooh, 26 is twice 13. So divide by 13, I'm out of room. Divide by 13 on this side, and y is 2. Now, at any point in time, I should be able to go back into my problem, into the original, and see that 2 is really the solution. So let's do that. Let's go back up here. If I plug, okay, so I'm going back before this and before this and plugging in a 2, okay, and plugging in a 2 right here. So let's see. 3 times 2 is 6 divided by 2 is 3 plus, and then 8 minus 4 times 2 is 8, so that's now a 0. 0 over 7 is still 0. 3 plus 0 is 3. And well, that's certainly true, isn't it? So we can check them by just plugging them in to the original equation. And we have one more practice before we do our, one more example before we do our practice problems. Last example. So 4, 2, and 10 all have a 2 in common. The 2 goes into the 4 and also into the 10. So we can pretty much ignore the 2 and just take 4 and 10 both go into 20. So 20 is the least common multiple. So remember, the way to do that is to factor 2 squared. 2 times 5, you're looking for the smallest number that these three go into. I've got to have a 2 squared. I've got to have a 2, but they can share. I've got to have a 2, but they can share, and a 5. So that's how you go through the factoring process to find your least common denominator or multiple. So 4 times 5 is 20. So that means I'm going to multiply this side by 20 and this side by 20. Okay, so once I've done that, then had to clear my board. 20 divided by 4 is 5. So 5 times x plus 1. Now you can write it out if you want to, or you can do it right away. Well, let's just write it out for once. 20 divided by 2 is 10. And 20 divided by 10 is 2. So if you were wanting to show more work, you could do that. And then multiply through. So 5 times x plus 5 minus 30 equals 4x minus 18. And these two are like terms. So 5x and then minus 25 equals 4x minus 18. So let's subtract the 4x from both sides. And we get x minus 25 equals negative 18. So now we're going to add a 25. And over here we're going to add a 25. So this goes out. We get x equals 7. X equals 7. So let's go back to the original and see if 7 works. 7 plus 1 is 8. 8 divided by 4 is 2. Okay. 3 divided by 2 is 1.5. So 2 minus 1.5 equals. All right. So then this one should equal a half, right? 2 times 7 is 14. Take away 9 is 5. 5 divided by 10 is 1/2 or 0.5. So is 2 minus 1.5 equal to 0.5? Yes, it most certainly is. Okay, so here is our first practice problem. So copy it down and then pause your video. Okay, what is the least common denominator between 4, 3, and 2? If you thought of 12, you're correct. Okay, now, once more, let's figure out how is it that we figure that out the fastest way as we get to bigger and bigger numbers. 4 is 2 squared. 3 has no common factor with 4, it's prime. And then 2 goes into the 2 squared, so they can share. So 4 times 3 is 12, and 12 is the least common multiple between all three numbers. 12 divided by 4 is 3. 3 times z is 3z minus 12 divided by 3 is 4. 12 divided by 2 is 6 times z, 6z. Okay, so now we have a 3z minus 4 is 6z. Let's just get everything on the other side. So minus 3z minus 3z, negative 4 equals 3z. And then we're going to get the z by itself, so divide by 3, divide by 3. And z is negative 4/3. Okay, so if we plug in negative 4/3, should it make this true? So let's go back up and do it. Negative 4/3 here, negative 4/3 here, and negative 4/3 here. Now, we have negative 4/3 times 1/4. And the negative 4 on the top and the 1/4 on the bottom are going to cancel. So we're going to get a negative 1/3. So negative 1/3 minus another third is going to be a negative 2/3. Okay, so now we had a negative 4/3, and then we're dividing by a 2, which means we're multiplying by a 1/2. So negative 4/3 times a 1/2 is negative 4/6. But negative 4/6 is the same thing as negative 2/3. Negative 1/3 and another negative 1/3 is negative 2/3. And this is negative 2/3. And it works. And we have one more practice. What a quick lesson today. Last practice for lesson 78. So copy it down and then go try to do it by yourself without looking at the example here. See if you're ready to go do your homework on your own. Right, so hopefully you did that. We have a 3 and a 2 and an 8. 3 is prime. 2 is also prime. 8 is 2 cubed. So the smallest that we can get is 2 cubed times 3 because this 2 fits in there. So 2 cubed is 8 times 3 is 24. So our least common denominator is 24. We're going to multiply by 24 on the left and the right-hand side of the equation. 24 divided by 3. Now I'm going to write out all the work on this one just in case you're still having any trouble. 24 divided by 3 is 8. So we're going to take 8 and multiply by the y plus 2. 24 divided by 2 is 12. So we're going to have 12 times 5. And lastly, 24 divided by 8 is 3. 2y minus 4. So now we're going to multiply out 8y plus 16 minus 12 times 5 is 60 equals 3 times 2y is 6y minus 12. Okay, so now we got to get all that cleaned up. These two are constants, 16 minus 60, so 8y. And that's going to be a negative 44 equals 6y minus 12. Okay, so now let's start the minus 6y here. minus 6y there. Okay, so now this one's going to be a 2y. And then this one's gone. Since we want this on the other side, since we're out of board, let's go ahead and add 44 and add 44 on the end. So now that's gone. And then on the end over here, we're going to have 44 take away 12 is 32. So now we got twice y is 32. That means that y is 16. We divide both sides by 2. So now let's go back up here. Is 16 the right answer? I don't know. My book doesn't tell me, but I'm hoping that we solved it correctly. So 16 plus 2 is 18, and 18 divided by 3 is 6. So this whole big thing right here equals 6. And then 5 divided by 2 is 2.5. So 6 minus 2.5, we'll just change it to a decimal because they're easier. And then remember, 16 times 2 is 32. Take away 4 is 28. And 28 divided by 8. Well, 28 divided by 8 is the same as 14 divided by 4, which is the same as 7 divided by 2. So you see I had 28 divided by 8, but that's too hard for my little brain. So I said 14 divided by 4 is 7 divided by 2. I'm just simplifying it each time. Now that I know is 3.5. 3.5. So 6 minus 2.5 is 3.5, and that is certainly true. So that one was kind of a messier one, but hopefully it helped you to do it and check it back into the original. So I highly recommend that you make checking it part of the process, because when you're really knowing what you're doing, being able to check it back into the original equation is very, very important. You don't always have the answers sitting there for you to see. We are done with lesson 78, and this is Mrs. A, and may God bless your day.